Hello everybody. This is a story about a planet and a star, separated by thousands of light years, that managed to have one brief moment of contact in 1054 AD. To help me tell this story, I have contacted my friend Parshati Patel, and she is going to start us off.
Just like humans, we all know that stars also have life and death cycle. But do all stars have the same fate? Or do they all die when they explode? Or do they all die quietly? It depends on star's mass. For a star like our sun, it will not blow up essentially like a supernova, but it will obviously blow up the outer layers, which means we are probably not going to be here to see it. However, stars, if they're massive, let's say 8 times more massive than our sun, they will eventually blow up and die not so quiet life. Now, this explosion is giant enough to be actually more brighter than the entire galaxy that hosts the star. Now, one of the most famous supernova remnants is Crab Nebula. You would have seen pictures of it. It's 6,500 light years away. A massive star's core collapses under its own gravity when it cannot hold itself anymore, and that's when an explosion occurs.
The people of Earth wouldn't see this titanic explosion for thousands of years. At this point, the first inklings of the Bronze Age were beginning. The first written words, the first Greek towns, and the first Egyptian dynasties were emerging. The famous Otzi the Iceman gives us just a small idea of what this time was like for our species.
Alright, let's step back. Why did the star actually explode in the first place? The star converts hydrogen into helium. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. So inside the core, there's a lot of energy that is going into converting hydrogen into helium. At some point, the core will run out of hydrogen and it will be completely made up of helium. Now, the process is going to repeat. Helium core will now start to burn and convert helium to carbon. This goes on until you reach iron. Once you reach iron, the temperatures and pressures are so high, the core cannot hold itself, so it collapses under its own gravity. This is when you get this large explosion, and this large explosion not only explodes the core and the surrounding core, which basically looks like an onion shell, but it also blows away all its upper layers in its surroundings. This is when you get these beautiful nebulas where you have different layers of the star being exploded and blown away from its central core. This explosion releases a lot of material and energy, and this energy is high enough to generate elements that are heavier than iron, which you do not actually form into the star, but actually when the star dies.
The light of the supernova reaching the Earth was a truly global event. In China, the supernova was called a guest star, and people from across the vast Song dynasty saw one more light in the night sky for over a year. Astrologers like Song Kuyao and Song Shi gave accounts of the new star just to the southeast of Tianguan. In Japan, Fujiwara no Taika became obsessed with guest stars after observing a comet. He too was able to find, through diaries that no longer exist today, astronomical records of our supernova seen on the island of the rising sun. In Constantinople, where Turkey is today, a Nestorian Christian doctor named Ibn Butlan wrote about the new star in the sky. It wasn't until the 13th century that his works were transcribed into Arabic, Bayun al-Abna. Other suspected sightings include places such as Europe, Australia, and the Americas. The native oral tradition of Australia has an account that we might interpret as this supernova. The same can be said about petroglyphs found in the American Southwest.
So how do you actually detect these? Using these current technologies, we detect neutrinos, which are formed when this core collapse occurs. Now, neutrinos arrive way earlier than the light actually arrives, which means using our observatories, we can actually detect neutrinos way ahead of time before the light from the supernova actually reaches Earth. This gives us a hint ahead of time to actually look for a supernova. So when the light arrives, we actually see the exploded part of the supernova, and it actually sometimes is as bright as an entire galaxy, and it can actually be seen with the naked eye. The propagation of this material actually creates beautiful nebula, and which we always see in the pictures are different colors, which means there are different elements that are being shredded from the core of this star. This different material goes back to the interstellar medium, which is where the newest generation of stars actually form. That's how we actually get all the material that is, other than hydrogen and helium, actually around different stars like our sun.
After years of theorizing by astronomers, they determined this visitor in the 11th century was the famous Crab Nebula. This blur in the sky, a permanent reminder of our supernova. The Hubble telescope is responsible for some of the most beautiful pictures in history. When they sent back photos of the Crab Nebula, we saw the final remains of that explosion that occurred so long ago. A connection between vast spans of distance and time. When we look up in the night sky, we aren't seeing a faraway cosmos separate from us. What we see out there is as much part of nature as the forests and the mountains. We often hear about space as vast and far away, but sometimes the light of an explosion thousands of light years away can come and visit us for a spell. Do you think that we should look at space as part of nature? Let us know down below. I want to thank my friend and real-life astronomer Parshati Patel for her help in telling this story. She actually has a podcast, and you should check it out. I'm going to put the link down in the description. Connect with me on Twitter and Facebook is all going to be down there as well. If you like this video, share it with someone. Thumbs up don't hurt either. If you want more cool history videos, subscribe to the Step Back channel.